Perfect. So I'll keep admitting people in as I give a little introduction. But thank you to everyone for taking the time out of your day this evening. We really appreciate it. My name is Malika, and you are here today to learn about how to craft the perfect apprenticeship application with BP. Whether or not you are thinking of applying for an apprenticeship, at some point in your life, you are going to have to do an interview, and these tips that you will learn today are invaluable. I know when I first stepped into an interview room and I'd never been able to speak to an employer before, I knocked my glass of water all over the table. So please take these tips and listen, make a note, but this webinar will be recorded and uploaded to our YouTube channel, and you will get a link directly to your inbox tomorrow morning. And thank you to everyone who has submitted questions beforehand via the registration form. We have made a note of these, and we will get down to answering these questions towards the end. But if you did have any questions throughout this webinar, please feel free to pop them in the chat. We are joined with Robin, the Early Careers Lead at BP, as well as a couple of apprentices who are here to give an insight into their journey, provide a couple of application tips, and we'll be here to answer any questions that you do have in the chat. So feel free to send any questions directly to them via the chat. To kick things off, we do have a little poll. We've got quite a few, so we want you guys to be as engaged as possible, and hopefully at the end you guys are feeling a lot more confident about your applications for your upcoming apprenticeships. So I'm just going to launch our first poll and pass it over to Robin whilst we collect all of the results for this poll.
Great. Okay, thank you, Malika. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. So I'm just going to flip through the slides. So here we go. So as you can see, hello and welcome from me. I'm Robin Ashfield. I'm the Early Careers Lead at BP for the UK. And then I'm joined by apprentices Luke, Molly and Rosie, who, as Malika said, will give you a whistle-stop tour of their journeys into apprenticeships at BP, and who will be available at the end to answer any of your questions, or, as Malika said, on the chat throughout. So feel free to just jump on in. So I'm going to do a very quick whistle-stop tour of who we are at BP and some of the apprenticeships that we offer, as well as the benefits of doing an apprenticeship. And then I'm going to talk to you about our application and assessment process, as Malika said, some hints and tips for success and things to think about. And then Luke, Molly and Rosie will take over and talk to you. Okay, my cat in the background. So at BP, we've been on a journey from an IOC to an IEC. What that means is that we have set a strategy to transform from an international oil company to an integrated energy company. Our purpose being to reimagine energy for people and our planet, to help the world reach net zero and improve people's lives. We believe the world wants and needs better and more balanced energy system that delivers secure, affordable and lower carbon energy. While we're mostly in oil and gas today, we've increased our global investment in our lower carbon convenience stores and power trading businesses from around 3% in 2019 to around 23% in 2023. So BP at a glance, who are we? You might be familiar with BP from our forecourt business when you go up to fill up with petrol or diesel, or increasingly now we have, so you see there on the slide, 29,000 EV charging points, where BP Pulse is our EV charging company. But we do much more than that. At BP, we provide heat, light and mobility to customers all over the world. We have operations in Europe, North and South America, Australasia, Asia and Africa. We deliver energy solutions across the world. Okay, so if you do want to think about joining BP, that was a few quick facts and figures for you, but you will be expected to do research into who we are at BP and what that means for you. A quick overview of some of our apprenticeship areas. We recruit apprentices into our trading and shipping business, into digital, into various business areas, and into engineering. We have apprenticeships from level 3, 4 and 6. Level 3 are advanced apprenticeships. That's broadly equivalent to A-level standard, rising up to level 4, and then level 6 to a degree. We have degrees in business and other areas, including digital and engineering. So the benefits of being an apprentice with BP, the starting salary range is from 22,000 to 24,000, a sign-on bonus of £3,000 as a one-off, a wellbeing allowance of £1,500 that resets each year, a range of flexible benefits. Currently, there is a flexible benefits allowance of 20% of your base salary that you can use to buy benefits that support you, or if none of those benefits appeal, you can just take that as extra cash. We have a supportive environment with buddies and mentors, clubs and societies. People sometimes worry about losing out on the social aspects from going to university, but actually we have a lot of opportunities for social contact during that apprenticeship as part of our overall early careers community, which is made up of not only apprentices, but also interns and graduate joiners as well. Programs last between 2 and 4 years, so 2 years for a level 3 or 4 program and 4 or 5 years for a level 6 program. You can see the asterisks at the bottom, so our trading and shipping apprenticeships actually pay more than the others and start that salary at 30,800. Okay, so moving swiftly on to the application and interview stages that you'll see. So what you can see here, we've got 4 broad buckets that people go through. The application form is quick and simple. If you are thinking about applying, I would suggest that you do that as quickly as you can. Our apprenticeship roles for 2025 start, September 25 starts, will open on the 6th of November. We do expect that we'll get a high level of applications, so the earlier you apply, the greater your chance of moving through these stages. So I'll say again, the 6th of November, they will be on bp.com. There will be a QR code displayed at the end that will take you to that site. At the moment, you can see on there apprenticeships that we recruited for just recently with the September 2024 start. You'll see that they say are closed, which they are. And on the 6th of November, they will be refreshed with all of our new opportunities. They won't necessarily be the same opportunities that are shown on the website now, but that does give you an indication of the kind of things that we're looking for. So as I said, the application form there is quick and simple. It assesses your eligibility for the role. By eligibility in an apprenticeship space, that means that you've got any qualifications that are deemed necessary for success in that role. All include a level 4 English and maths at GCSE. Some may include specific other GCSE subjects and grades, and some will include A-levels with subjects and grades, depending on the programme. If you have a look at the advert and at the job description underneath, both will tell you what that is. If you're not sure about any of your qualifications, there is a candidate helpline and email address that you can email in to check. If you are checking a qualification, it is helpful if you can give as much detail as possible about what that qualification is that you're doing. So particularly if you are doing an alternative to A-levels, to help us assess whether that is equivalent to what we've asked for, it's helpful if you can give us some more information. Assuming that you are eligible and we are ready to move you on, we'll put you through to our online assessments. Now you will receive an email to let you know that we have moved you through to that stage, and there will be a link for you to follow. And I cannot stress this enough, that you need to check your emails, you need to check your inbox, and you need to check your junk folders. You need to do that regularly. It can take several months to get through this whole process, and we will send you emails from a system, but also sometimes later in the stage from our own personal email boxes. If you miss an email taking you through a stage, you might not get an opportunity to redo that stage. I cannot stress enough that you need to keep an eye on your emails if you have applied. The online assessment, so you get an email with a link. The link will take you to a microsite that will give you an opportunity to practice those tests. And I'll show you that in a minute. Do the tests, do the practice tests. You can also Google graduate or apprentice online psychometric tests and get free examples and tests. There is a definite benefit to being familiar with that kind of test. My top tip is to set aside some quiet time and space to do the tests where you won't be rushed or interrupted. Our online tests will ask you some questions around your behaviours, also around situational judgments, so judgments that you would make in a situation. What would you do if this happened? And we'll ask you for some cognitive ability tests as well. If those go well, we may move you to an on-demand video interview, which I will talk about more in a minute. And you can see here that it says that assesses your motivation and values and some competency-based questions. That on-demand video is when we are first going to want to see your motivations for applying for this role. So keep that in mind. If that goes well, we will move you then to our final stage assessment centre, which is a bespoke assessment day to test alignment with BP values. There will be a range of activities that you'll do. We will tell you what they are likely to be before you come, along with any specific instructions. Again, we will email you those, so keep an eye on your inbox. Okay. So if you remember, I said after application, the first stage is online assessments. Your email will look something like this. So you can see here that it is branded and it does contain that link to our microsite, or has the QR code that will allow you to practice the tests. And when you're ready, you can launch and take those tests. Do the practice, do find a quiet space to work through them. You only get one opportunity to do the live tests, so make sure that you're ready for them. Okay. What I would say here is practice makes progress. So I mentioned earlier that you have a practice opportunity on that microsite, but also you can Google for examples. We aren't looking for perfection, but we do want you to do your very best. And as I said, there is only one opportunity to do these tests. So try to be in the best position that you can to take yourself through those tests. The behavioural assessment and the situational judgment questionnaire aren't timed, so there's no time pressure to move through those. However, I would say try not to think too deeply into the answers and answer sort of with your gut feeling, with your heart. We want to know who you are. We want you to be you in coming through. If you're trying to second guess what we're after, chances are you're just not going to represent yourself in an authentic, cohesive way. The logical reasoning part of the test is timed. If you need additional time because you have that normally as part of your schooling, if you would normally have additional time for exams, or you would have different conditions, we will ask you as part of the application process if you need adjustments. please do tell us, because we want you to do your best. We will never judge somebody for the additional needs that they have, and how we can meet them best is something that we will look for, and we may contact you to ask you how we can help to support you. All right. So then you would move to our BP video interview. Now, this can feel a bit strange, and we tend to assume that young people spend a lot of time on their phones recording themselves. However, when it comes to doing that as part of a job interview, it can feel quite strange and a bit alien. What you'll get, again, you will get an email with a link to take you through. The platform we use is called Higher View. There'll be pre-recorded questions, and they are recorded by people, genuine people who work at BP in the recruitment field. Across the globe, people have been selected to record interview questions. Typically, we'll ask you about 5 questions. The format is that somebody such as myself will read you out a question. You will then have a couple of minutes to think about your answer and a couple of minutes to record your answer back. In total, it should last about 30 minutes. We will be looking to assess your motivation for the company and for the role that you've applied for. So you do need to think about your motivation for working for BP. Think about your motivation for working in the energy industry. Think about your motivation for doing an apprenticeship, and think about your motivation for that particular role that you've applied for. I know that sounds like a lot, but tying those things together will again put you in the best position to present yourself as the ideal candidate. As I say, we will get a lot of applications for our apprenticeships. In saying that you want to work for BP because we're a big company, that's not enough. We expect you to know something more about who we are as BP and why that resonates with you. Okay. So I've mentioned a couple of times that we will ask you likely competency-based questions. And as Malika said at the start, even if you decide not to apply for an apprenticeship or an apprenticeship with BP, competency-based questions are used throughout almost every interview situation, whether they are termed competency or not. So what is a competency in question? A competency is a set of defined behaviours or qualities which represent what a company expects their employees to have and which can be objectively measured. So it is a skill. Typically, we might say something like, tell me about a time when you have had to influence someone more senior than you. The skill we're looking for is, how do you influence someone? Or we might say, describe a time when you have had to make a difficult decision, for example, and I'll give you another example in a minute. You need to be specific in your answers. You need to give an actual example of something that you have done, not hypothetically. It won't sound authentic if you are making it up, or if you say, well, I've never been in that situation, but actually what I would do is this, which if you really can't think of an answer, it's a way forward, but you are much more likely to score more highly if you can think of a real example. We know that candidates applying for our early careers opportunities won't have very much by way of work experience. And we know that that work experience is quite likely to not be immediately relevant to the job that you're applying for. We know that you won't have worked in a big corporate company or probably even in an office, but actually it's quite likely that you've had a part-time job somewhere, or that you've been part of a committee or a club at school or a sports club. There's lots of different examples in your life that you can pull those questions and answers from. When you're thinking about how you're going to answer the question, you can use the STARS technique. And that's something we say to people at the start of their career and later in their career. We get many applications and we will watch all of those videos. If I can't understand where your story, where your example is taking me, that makes it very hard for me to give you a score. The STARS technique is a way of framing that answer to take me on the journey. What is the situation you were in? What was the task you were trying to achieve? What was the action that you took? Now, we know that teamwork is important and we all talk about teamwork a lot, which is great, and teamwork is important. But with that action point, we want to know, why was the team better? Because you were in it. You need to make yourself the star of your story. You close with the result, what happened in that task, and then S, the final S for self. So we've said, don't forget to talk about what you did, but also some self-reflection. If you learn any lessons from it, if you went on to do that again, what would you do differently? And again, practice makes progress. So practice recording yourself answering some questions. Again, you can Google some questions. You'll get lots of examples. Practice recording yourself in 2 or 3 minute slots. You can play it back just to yourself if you're not comfortable with someone else, or to a trusted family member or friend, and you can ask them if they can follow your story, if they can identify that you were the hero. So we've got an example here of a competency being assessed as problem solving. Very common competency that people need in all types of roles. So the situation, working for a supermarket distribution centre, I was responsible for coordinating food deliveries to some of our small stores. We used refrigerated vehicles for this task, and one week I noticed that we had a lot of damaged cold goods. The task. I looked at the pattern of the problems and which stores were affected, what dates, which driver had delivered them, and which vehicle had carried out the delivery. I identified that the problems could be linked to one vehicle in the fleet, and the issues seemed to only occur when this vehicle was delivering to particular stores. The action. I asked for a refrigeration specialist to check the vehicle, and he found nothing wrong during testing in the distribution warehouse. I therefore recommended that the temperature of the refrigeration system was checked at intervals along the delivery route and logged. This showed that the refrigeration system was not performing when the vehicle was travelling above 40 miles an hour. Hence, the problem only affected deliveries where the vehicle was out of town. Using my knowledge of refrigeration systems, I proposed an explanation, and this was confirmed to be the cause of the problem by the refrigeration specialist. Result, the vehicle was overhauled and the problem was solved. This has resulted in a significant decrease in the amount of food wastage for the company. And self, from this, I learned the importance of being thorough in my investigation and to persevere when the answer is not always apparent. I took satisfaction from being able to identify the problem and being able to propose a solution. And this was recognised by my manager, who praised me for my work. Okay, so hopefully that helps to take through an actual example. Who we are our set of beliefs. This detail is available on our website, so I won't read through them all. But what I will say is that who we are defines what we stand for at BP, building on our best qualities and those things that are important to us. Those things that are important to us are going to inform how we assess candidates who want to come and work for us. It's a good tip to pay attention to these beliefs and think about, when you're thinking about your competencies, when you're thinking about your examples that you might bring to an interview situation, can you talk about each of these beliefs in that example. Okay. It's a good idea to think about having perhaps 5 different examples that you can flex to different competencies. That you can flex those examples that show when you have considered safety or when you have been kind. Bear in mind, we will not use these words when we ask you the questions. It won't be as obvious as that. But if you've been able to use your examples to build yourself a story, an answer that covers these things, you'll be in good shape. Okay, so finally, if that goes well as well, the recorded interview, we may invite you to an assessment centre. An assessment centre will be in person. It will be in the office where the role will be based. Employers such as us are looking to assess behaviours and competencies that are specific to the role and the organisational culture. The organisational culture, that's the who we are beliefs that I just spoke about. Typically, we will use 3 to 5 different activities, and they might be a combination of a group activity, some individual activities, whether that's written or asking you to present or answer some questions. It might include a role play, an analytical case study, or an interview. If there is anything that we're asking you to do, we will most likely provide all of the information on the day only. In rare circumstances, we might ask you to prepare something in advance, in which case we will normally give you about a week to prepare. Increasingly, we only use material on the day. So you can't overly prepare because we won't see that material. But what I would suggest is that you revisit those answers, those questions, you revisit your motivations for working in the energy industry for BP and in the role that you've applied for. You will be observed by several different assessors throughout the day, which can feel a bit uncomfortable. But the reason that we do it that way is that if you undertake an activity and you feel that it didn't go very well, that will not be the single point that determines whether you get a job offer or not. There will be other opportunities to perform differently, to play to your strengths. If you met an assessor and you felt like you didn't do well in front of them, the next activity you will be assessed by somebody else. It won't be a single person's judgment that determines whether you get a job or not. We are looking for many different aspects in your performance to determine if you are suitable for the role and for the organisation. And we are looking for different views from different assessors to make sure that we have looked at all of the different facets. So to prepare for an assessment centre, again, keep an eye on your inbox, including your junk folders. We will send you an invite by email. We may also give you a ring. So if you are applying and you think that this might be coming through, make sure that you answer your phone. Make sure that you answer your phone in an appropriately professional manner. Preparing for an assessment centre, do some research into BP and our plans, what's important to BP. That will help to inform you when you come through on the day. Take time to read through any briefing guides you've been sent ahead of the day. We will normally invite you to a briefing call before that final assessment centre. Again, that invite will come by email. Check your email boxes. Take time to attend the call if you can. Take time to read through the organisational culture tips that we give you, the who we are, what does that mean to us and how do you show them? Let us know in advance of any adjustments that you might need to the process. Hopefully you've already done that as part of your application, but if there is anything else that you need that will help you to do your best on the day, just let us know and we will adjust that for you. Same as if we ask you if you've got any dietary requirements, don't be afraid to tell us what you need. There's some reiteration there. To add to that, refreshments will be provided throughout the day. It can be really hard to eat and drink if you're feeling nervous, but do try. We don't want people to feel unwell during the day. Be yourself is a really important factor. If you've got to a final stage assessment centre, there are things throughout those stages that we've seen about you that we want to learn more about. You need to be yourself and we will be ourselves, and you will decide if this is the right role for you in the way that we're also deciding if you're the right candidate for the role. Ensure that you make a contribution. Whilst we are very happy to have different personality types in our business, we need different personality types, including introverts as well as extroverts. However, if we don't hear you say anything, for example, in a group activity, we cannot assess what you've said and how you've interacted with other people. If those thoughts are in your head, you have to verbalise them so that we can hear them and we can note down the good stuff that you've said. Try to remain positive, even if you feel you didn't do so well at something. You won't truly know what we're looking for. We often make offers to people who say, oh my goodness, I thought I did really badly. And actually, that's not true at all. They just misjudged what they thought we were looking for. So at this point, I'm going to now pause for breath and I'm going to hand over to our apprentices. So Luke, you are first up. Would you like to talk through your slide? You're on mute, Luke.
Yeah, rookie mistake. So I said, yeah, thank you, Robin. To start off my career, I joined a go-kart track as my first job, and I didn't have much interest in go-karting, to be honest, but I sort of slowly found a passion for it when I was sort of working there. Then I ended up getting a couple of promotions to becoming a race director, which became really, really handy coming into the interview stages, because you learn a lot of skills and demonstrate a lot of skills in more of a leadership role. And I did my A-levels, which I did business, economics and IT. And then I started to think about, in about start of year 13, what I want to do next. Do I want to go to university? Do I want to do an apprenticeship? If I do an apprenticeship, in what? So then you have to start doing your research, what skills align with different roles. So I started reaching out to current apprentices on LinkedIn, and if everyone's got any questions after this, you can always reach out to me or the other apprentices on LinkedIn. Just type up my name and BP, I'll probably come up at the top. Then I got the job offer for BP, and I've never even looked back and regretted my decision. So a few tips on the application process is how can you link yourself to the BP goals? So we're very keen on safety and the environment, making a good impact onto the environment. So how can you link those main goals to yourself? Make sure you demonstrate that in the interview. Be confident. Everyone's gonna be nervous on the day, but to try and make sure you be yourself. As I just said, reach out to current BP apprentices on LinkedIn if you're interested in BP, and everyone's always more than happy to help out. Fourthly, show off your knowledge of the company. Do your research. Look at our projects and what we're trying to do. So one of our big projects, big aims at the moment, is becoming net zero by 2050 or sooner. And then finally, use some keywords from the job description to demonstrate that you align with the job role. And we spoke a bit about why BP earlier. So the culture, the benefits and the pay is very good, especially for someone so young. I joined at 19, so it's a massive increase from a small part-time job to becoming full-time. The opportunities are really good. So after you finish your apprenticeship, you can move into the same entity or move elsewhere if you want to do something else. It's really encouraged to keep moving around and taking on new opportunities. And lastly, the ethics. I mean, everyone's so nice and everyone's always more than happy to help out. And then, why do you want to do an apprenticeship over university? Because that's the big question when you're 18, 19, is what do you want to do? And I leant towards the apprenticeships more, and because you get qualification and you get the experience. So at university, you only get the qualification without the experience. You get the best of both worlds. Secondly, you're surrounded by like-minded people who all want to climb that corporate ladder. Thirdly, you're getting paid to learn. When you go to university, you pay £9,000 a year, but at BP you can get the free degree if you take an honour degree apprenticeship, and you get paid for it. And then no debt. So you're spending about up to £30,000 in university. Whereas you're going to come to an apprenticeship and you're getting paid at the same time, so you come off financially a lot better. And lastly, you get a good head start. You're 2-3 years in the company before any of the graduates join. So yeah, hope that helps. And I'll pass on to is it Molly next?
Molly next.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Luke. Question for you in the chat.
Hiya,
yeah.
I'm
Thanks,
Molly. Thank you. I'm a people and culture degree apprentice at BP. So before I joined BP, I did A-levels in geography, business and dance. And I also did an EPQ alongside this. Also alongside my A-levels, I used to work at B&Q and I was a kitchen and bathroom designer. So like Luke said, like it's just a fun thing to say in your interview and just kind of reflect on. During my A-level summer, I went and did Camp America. So after my last A-level, I flew to Pennsylvania and I worked at Camp Wayne for girls. I just looked after the campers aged 7 to 8. I then went back to B&Q after I came back from America. I decided not to go to university. And here I did a project management kind of course with Prince 2. I found this really helpful. Like if you've got an interest in something, like taking a little course in it can be quite helpful, because I reflected on this in my interview as well. So I would recommend that too. After this, I went traveling. So I went to Australia for 3 months and then Thailand for a month. Thought this was a great experience and met lovely people. Then I found out that I got the role at BP, so I came back home, looked for a flat, and then I moved up to Twickenham. So why did I choose to do an apprenticeship? So it's professional work experience and you get to learn from highly skilled workforce. Just working within your team, like learning off of them, is such an amazing opportunity. And then BP also supports your education whilst you're working. So I've heard that you get a day to do your degree alongside 4 days of work. So that's incredible as well. Like Luke said, no student debt. And also BP just has an amazing culture. Like everyone's so lovely and welcoming, which is great. So my interview process consisted of the application, the technical and behavioural questionnaire, the recorded questions, and then the assessment day. I had the group task interview and then the individual stakeholder challenge. My top tips would be yourself. Don't panic and find out about BP, and then just practice interview questions, and just make sure that you've got like some good examples about yourself just to reflect on as well. But yeah, that's everything. If you want to chat on LinkedIn, then you can also Google me, but that's all good.
Amazing. Thank you, Molly. And then we will move on to Rosie.
Thank you, Robin. So my name is Rosie, and I'm a second year People and Culture degree apprentice. So for anyone who might not be familiar, People and Culture is essentially human resources, and you come out of it with a business management degree. So a bit about my career history. When I was in year 13, I worked in shoe for a few months, but then I decided that I wanted to focus on my Christmas mocks instead. And shortly after that, I worked in Puttstars, which is sort of a golf centre, from February to October during my A-levels, and I decided to take a gap year because I didn't know about degree apprenticeships or just apprenticeships in general really. My school didn't tell me about them because they sort of pushed the idea of going to uni. So I went through the whole uni process, realised I just didn't want to go, so I took the year out. And once I left there, I then joined Waitrose. I worked in Waitrose until I joined BP. In terms of my A-levels, I did English, literature, psychology and business. And I always wanted to do something in business or marketing or something like that. And when I came across this degree apprenticeship, it sounded exactly what I wanted to do. So it was definitely the right one for me. I definitely made the right decision, and BP really do care about their early careers. So if anyone is worried about the transition of going from, you know, like a sort of school environment to a big company, it's really not as bad as you think. The transition's really smooth because everyone just looks after you and treats you the same as every other employee because you are, and you're chosen for a reason. So that definitely really helps. And sort of some of the reasons I chose to do an apprenticeship over uni is similar to what Luke and Molly have said in terms of the financial stability of it. You've got a sort of secure job and you're also getting experience while you're getting paid, which I think is a really valuable attribute of it. I also personally just wasn't ready to move away from home because I live quite close to where the office is, so I wouldn't have to. Some people do relocate, but BP are very supportive with that as well. And again, I'm not missing out on the social life just because BP are very good at funding that and organising that for you at least once every month, and they're really well organised as well. So again, similar to what you've heard already, but I think it just shows how true it is in terms of being yourself, because if you feel the need that you need to either lie or exaggerate or anything like that in your application, I think it's just worth asking if it is the right apprenticeship for you, because if you have to not be yourself to get it, you won't enjoy it when you are being yourself. And definitely research the values, because that is what stands out and it shows that you have put in that extra effort. And what's been said before, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn. So my name on LinkedIn is just my name, BP, and you'll be able to find me. And definitely the person that you are and the person that you show to your assessors is more important than what's on your CV. We could have the perfect candidate on paper, whereas if they really don't show the motivation, the passion to want to work here, then they won't be chosen. So we get questions sometimes about how important is my work experience, how important are my A-level grades, and they're not as important as you think, because someone can easily be trained in a role, but you can't train someone to fit in with the culture. So just be yourself, and just good luck everyone if you do decide to apply. It's definitely a great place to work, and I don't regret my decision at all.
Thank you, Rosie. Right, so Malika, that takes us to any final closing questions.
Fab. So Robin, I'm not sure if you've noticed, but we've got a Q&A. So there's been quite a few, there's a Q&A section next to the chat at the top. So we've had quite a few questions in there, and we're also going to finish up on a couple of polls to see if you guys are feeling a bit more confident in your apprenticeship application, because it seemed like most people in the previous poll are sitting sort of unsure. So please feel free to pop questions in the chat or in that Q&A section. But one of the questions that we got was, for apprenticeships, is there a bigger emphasis on the hard skills that you need for the actual apprenticeship or the soft skills, and does these vary from course to course?
Great, thank you for reading that out, Malika, because the Q&A section is not currently loading for me. I'll leave it spinning. Oh, looks like it's coming through. So the answer to that is yes, it varies from course to course. So some apprenticeships, such as software engineering, for example, will require a qualification in an IT related subject in computer science, and it will require some basic coding skills so that you can be successful from the off. Other apprenticeships, like for example product management or P&C or finance, project controls, don't require specific forerunning experience or qualifications. Anything that is needed will be explicitly stated on the job description and the ad.
That all makes sense. So we've got another question from James, which I think is quite a good question, especially if you're just starting out your apprenticeship applications and job applications. Should your CV be tailored for the specific job/industry that you are going into or applying for?
That's a great question. So for us, for BP applications, we don't particularly consider what's on your CV beyond the basics of what qualifications do you have. It's never a bad idea to tailor your CV, but again, we accept that people aren't going to have a huge amount on their CV that would make it particularly applicable to BP. If there is something like, for example, a digital application that you're making, it is a good idea to get into the practice of writing those things out. And that will help you later when you're thinking about how you answer certain questions. But for us, for early careers, we don't consider your CV beyond ensuring that your qualifications meet our requirements. What I would say about your CV, you need to save it with an appropriate document name, because I will see the name that you have saved that CV as. So if you think you're saving it as something funny, and I'm in the professional side, I might not agree with you.
That is very, very good to know. Very, very good to know. Another question that we've got is, how important for BP specifically are grades compared to the culture fit that you guys have mentioned, the work experience as well, sort of the competencies and motivations? Is there sort of a bit more weightage one way or the other?
Right. So for grades, it very much, again, depends on the programme that you're following. So we will have, for example, level 3, level 4 in our trading and shipping business, where the only qualifications that we are asking for is a grade 4 English and Maths GCSE. That's it. Anything else you can apply for. We will obviously then do some testing to make sure that you have the potential to be successful in that role, but that is a very open opportunity. At the other end of the scale, we have, for example, engineering degree apprenticeships, which will ask for specific grades and specific subjects. So aviation engineering, for example, last year required, I think, a grade B in both physics and maths. So there will be some that are fundamental, non-negotiable eligibility. Now, we know again that you probably haven't taken those exams yet. So if they are predicted grades, that's absolutely fine. But I would ask you to bear in mind that we will ask you for your final grades to firm up that offer. So much like a UCAS offer is conditional for university, the offer for employment with us will be conditional if you haven't yet got those results in. Beyond that, what we're looking for are the skills that we will assess during the process, the different stages. So at the online testing, we are looking at some cognitive, some mental abilities that you can do, as well as how you present yourself in certain situations. View interview, we're looking at your motivations and how you align with our beliefs of who we are. And then in the final stage assessment centre, we're looking for a combination of those things.
Great, I hope that answered that question for you guys. So the next question that I have, I'm going to actually direct to our apprentices that we have. If you guys could think back sort of to when you were applying and when you were coming up with the scenarios for your competency-based questions, do you have any tips for a student who might be feeling as though they don't have any competencies that they can use, or they don't have any scenarios rather that they can use? Is there anything you sort of wish you knew when you started planning for that process? Molly, you're the first person I can see on my screen smiling, so I'm going to have to go to you for that one first.
No. I would just think back to everything, if you're in a school setting, think back to everything you've done in school. I definitely just Google questions and try and get an idea of what the question might be, and then just really think, like, whether it's in school, whether it's in your home life, whether you've gone through something that then you can relate back to. And I just write them down, like do like a mind map and just like lay everything down that you've done and or you've achieved or you've been through. I would just do a mind map. I love a mind map. That's all I would say.
Rosie, Luke, anything to add to that, sort of what you could tell your younger self?
Quite similar to what Molly said. I think if anyone has done maybe even an interview for a part-time job, it's quite similar questions to that. It's things that you sort of can expect to come up. So, for example, working in a team or a time where you've had to think of something on the spot, anything like that. Again, yeah, it doesn't have to be linked to work at all. It can be linked to school, like Molly said. But just think of even things that you know that you are proud of that you've done. If you think back to, I don't know, for example, maybe you led a project in one of your A-level classes or something like that. Literally anything can be used as long as you show how it's relevant. So don't worry if it's not like groundbreaking or it's not, you know, it's not amazing as such. If you're not that confident with it, it's more than likely going to be a much better answer than you think. Because as has been said, I think I came out that thinking, oh my God, I did so badly. And obviously I didn't. So you always do better than you think. But yeah, just literally any experience you have in any sort of environment is fine.
Luke, anything to add? Or I've actually got a separate question for you that I can come to in a minute. But anything to add?
I think it's important that if you can get a part-time job, to definitely do it, because even though you might tell your mates, "I work at the same as I just stack some shelves," if you think about it, there's actually a lot of skills you do on the job which you don't even realise. So once you start actively thinking about those communication skills, the teamwork skills, the problem-solving skills on the job, you know, the part-time job does bring a lot more skills than just stacking shelves, for example. So if you can get a part-time job, I think it's really important to get one and have a think while you're doing the job is what type of skills am I demonstrating? Then you can easily use those in your interviews.
That's super valuable. So what I'm going to do is launch our poll about scenarios for competency-based questions to see how we're all feeling about them. As a little reminder, this entire webinar will be shared with you tomorrow morning, so you've got a copy of it. But whilst you guys are doing that poll, I'm going to go back to Luke and discuss researching BP. So you sort of mentioned, I think, in your slide that you started researching about what company you wanted to work for and how you could stand out. How did you go about that? And do you have any tips for students who are currently researching?
Your best resource is definitely the company's website. They've got all their projects, their goals and their aims. I think in my interview, I mentioned about how many charges BP Pulse are trying to push out in the next 5 years. And that was a bit of an odd stat, which I don't think the interviewers even knew. And that kind of put them off, threw them off a little bit to show that you've actually done, you know, not just the goals and aims, but you've actually gone deeper into the company and researched about sort of a specific entity within BP. But everything's on the website. Have a look through the website. Spend half an hour just sort of navigating through, and you'll find a lot of things on there, and even the social media pages as well. They're great for sort of the projects that we're working on at the moment.
Right, that's super useful. So we've got a couple more. There are so many questions. I'm not sure going to be able to answer all of them, but we really appreciate all of your participation, and I'll share all these questions with BP post this webinar. So we've got another poll that's just, do you know how to research BP? And I'll let that sit there for a little while. So all three of you guys have discussed quite clearly your motivations for doing an apprenticeship. If this is an apprenticeship more broadly, so sort of the no student debt, that's obviously a massive draw to doing an apprenticeship. But when it comes to what you're looking for at BP specifically, when it comes to what are your motivations for doing an apprenticeship, how specific do you need it to be about BP? I know, Robin, you mentioned that quite specific, but is there any more clarification? Are you talking a current student should know sort of where they want to be in 5 years time at BP, and why BP is the place for them? How detailed is this answer expected to be?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And actually I hate the question of where do you see yourself in 5 years? It's such an enormous amount of time when you're only 18. So in terms of being BP specific, what I always say to would-be candidates is do research on 3 to 4 levels. So the first level is, why do you want to work in the energy industry? The energy industry obviously is huge and global, and something that we all use. What are your thoughts about the energy industry? For BP specifically, when you're thinking about the energy industry, I would Google energy trilemma. Trilemma, that's 3 things. So if you have a look at that, that will give you some indication of where BP's thoughts are in being in the energy industry. Then you also need to think about why BP. So what is it that you know about BP, that you've learned about BP? Now, you will get lots of information from our website, from bp.com. If you sign up to our talent community, which when you go to bp.com/careers, you will see there's a green banner at the top for you to sign up to the talent community. Make sure you are on the early careers pages when you do that. We will also then provide you with some thoughts and stories of things about BP that will help you. But why BP versus one of our competitors? So why do you want to work for BP and not Shell? What is it about BP that has spoken to you? Then I've said before, you also need to be really clear about your motivations for doing an apprenticeship. An apprenticeship is an amazing opportunity, but these guys here will tell you it's not easy to land in a corporate environment for the first time, start learning ways of working. How do you even talk to people in a corporate environment? There's so much that you need to learn, and then you actually need to do your job, and you need to find time to do your studies, and you need to find time to socialize and do all of the things that you should be doing as a young person. So you need to have that motivation, and that will see you through when times are tough and you feel like there just aren't enough hours in the week. And then also you need to think about your motivation for working in the particular area that you work in. So Luke's working in digital. What is it that's exciting about working in digital? How does digital relate to BP and to the energy transition that we're in? If you can link all of those things together, or you can have had some thoughts about those things, that's going to give you a tip-top answer.
That was really, really comprehensive. I hope everyone took a little note of that, because that would be super helpful for when you are applying. So I am conscious of the time. Robin, I don't know if it would be possible, or if one of you could share that link to your early talent community in the chat.
Absolutely.
We've got quite a few questions about that, so hopefully that will help you guys and with your sort of applications and going forward. So I just wanted to finish off on one question, probably for the apprentices, as you've all talked about being you. But I think when it comes to apprenticeship applications and sort of being still in school, you do have to be quite confident with yourself and who you are on the day. Do you have any tips or anything that you would like to leave these students with when it comes to their apprenticeship applications and being confident in themselves, something that maybe you wish you heard when you were in that position all those years ago? Should we kick it off with Rosie? We'll start with you.
Yeah, that's fine. I just didn't want to unmute at the same time as someone else and just speak over. So yeah, I think we did cover most of the bases in terms of confidence, being yourself and everything. But I think if I could tell myself something when I was applying, it's first of all, be patient, because the amount of applications we get are such a high volume that it does take quite a while to go through them. So if you haven't heard back in a week or even a month, don't be discouraged by it and don't sort of forget about it. And like Robin said, keep checking your emails, because sometimes I think at some point with the BP one, I thought, oh, I haven't got it because I haven't heard from them in a week or so. And it's just not true. It's just maybe a longer process than you might have in your head. Another thing is that if you are applying for multiple apprenticeships, don't let rejections put you off, because different companies are looking for different things and they recruit differently, and you don't know how many applicants there are. So a rejection doesn't mean you should just give up entirely. It just means that wasn't the right one for you. I think BP was one of the few that I did get, and I did get rejected by quite a few as well, but at the same time, when I look back, they were ones that I wasn't very interested anyway. I think I applied for a finance one, which I didn't really want anyway. So it's actually a good thing that I was rejected. It saved me going into something I didn't want to do. So just don't be discouraged by anything. Apply for what you can, and I think it's definitely worth at least just putting in the application, because like we've shown, the first step is literally just a CV and a few questions. It's not one of those ones that's going to take you an hour and you have to set aside time for it. You might as well just put the application in, and the rest will soon follow. And with every stage you will be reminded of the steps and, you know, given a little bit of context. So if you don't really remember maybe details of the video interview, for example, you will get those anyway. Just don't put as much pressure on yourself as you probably are, because it does feel daunting, but everything does work itself out. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Those are great insights, Rosie. They're great tips in not being put off if you get rejections, and even if you get, you know, if you were to apply to BP and not get through, it is not uncommon that people come back and apply and have another go. In fact, we actually quite love that, because it shows that you are motivated to work for BP. It shows that you've got resilience, that you don't fall at the first hurdle, that you will come back and have a go. So don't be put off.
To add to that, I think I actually did apply for this one in year 13 and didn't get it because I did it too late and I just didn't put effort into it, and I applied again the next year and got it. So, and I know grads that have done the same thing. They've applied, got rejected, applied again the next year and they've got it. So it's definitely, it's just a hurdle. It's not the end of the road.
It's a learning experience.
That's super inspirational, and I hope you guys think so too. So Luke, anything to add to that?
Yeah, so when I did my first on interview, it was pretty rubbish. It was, I sort of stuttering, wasn't as prepared, and luckily it wasn't the BP interview. And the only way you can get better at doing these interviews is just by just actually doing them and practicing them. So I could really tell by each interview I was getting better and better and better. Or at the same time, getting rejections when you're having a bad interview is quite. It's not very nice to see. So you have to try and change your mindset and look at those rejections as a positive, because each rejection means you're getting better and better because you just did a whole nother application practice. So if you get rejection, just look at it as practice, and then you come out stronger than the last application. So just be positive, because you will face rejections. Everyone faces rejections. Yeah, that's my top tip. Just be positive. Learn from your mistakes.
No, lovely. And with that, sorry, just before we move on to Molly, with that practice for your interviews, was that sort of with a family member? Was that just sort of talking to your screen? How did you go about that?
So you don't really get feedback from companies when you do the interview, but the only way you can get feedback is actually doing it with your family and friends, and then they can give you feedback on how you sort of present yourself, your choice of words. But then if you want to get that real sort of feeling of doing it in actual practice, doing it for a company in a company interview would be good. So I just say to everyone, you know, if you want to practice, just apply for a random company, and then they give you real questions in a real life scenario where you get that real life pressure. So yeah, so either go through the company's application process, or family and friends is a great one to do as well for instant feedback.
Super helpful. And Molly, just over to you for last closing remarks.
I would definitely say, like Rosie and Luke said, like practice with friends and family, but also I applied for a few apprenticeships that maybe I didn't particularly want, but they were just good practice in the moment. And even when I got interviews, like it was before BP, so I was able to then relax a little bit more. For BP, I kind of knew the processes, so like honestly, like apply for apprenticeships that maybe, you know, you're interested in, but it's not such a big thing. I would also say just don't worry too much. Like everyone at BP is so lovely. Like I came to the assessment centre and everyone was like so friendly, wanted to get to know like who you were, and also the apprentices who were in the room with you, like they were such lovely people, and like you're friends with them now if you get through, which is so lovely. So just don't worry, everyone's on your side, and just really honestly be yourself, because it's what's going to get you through.
Oh, that's really lovely. So we're going to close it here because I'm conscious that we've run a little bit over, but thank you, since most of you guys did actually stay on to hear all of these really insightful tips. And thank you to the team at BP for answering the questions in that Q&A throughout, and sort of hosting this event. I know everyone will find it really, really useful. So hopefully at this point we're feeling a bit more confident about our applications, whether that be at BP or just in the future. But I just wanted to say a massive thank you. We really appreciate your time, both everyone that's joined us here and the team at BP. So we'll close it off with one more poll with how confident you feel, and hopefully we're seeing a lot more somewhat confident or extremely confident. But as I've mentioned, you will get access to this full presentation to watch as many times as you'd like, so we can make sure that everyone is feeling extremely confident, and hopefully you'll be seeing this team at BP in real life very, very soon. But thank you so much, and hope you guys have a lovely evening.